Hey, this is Dag, and you're listening to Beyond Trek Podcast.
Red alert.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of Beyond Trek Podcast. I'm your host, Big J, along here with Renzo and Susie Q. So we're going to be talking about Picard, Episode 2, Season 2, Penance. And we find Picard under another of Q's trials. He ends up in a very dystopian timeline in the 2400s. So let's jump right into it. Renzo, you want to lead us off with the play-by-play?
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Sure. So this picks up right where the last episode did. We've got Q and Picard stepping outside of Picard's house. There are air raid sirens and weapons fire, and Picard is like, what the hell is going on, Q? This is your home, right? Picard asks about the Stargazer. How quaint and provincial. How yesterday's Enterprise, which is a direct call out to the episode that we all know and love. But it's a little bit of a fourth wall break for Q, which I like because Q, if anybody, should know.
We should have some of those. I loved it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Q mocks it and literally goes that, there is no Stargazer, right? Like, doesn't exist here, bro. We get a demand from Picard to be like, what have you done? And Q is again, like, almost annoyed by him. Now, I said this last episode, I'm going to say it again. For whatever reason, Q in these scenes to me comes off as a little bit more malicious and menacing than he usually does. In Q Who, I believe, he comes off the same way. Yes. It's not the standard Q. It's not so mischievous. It's a bit more serious this time. So I'm kind of a little weirded out by it, but it's an interesting approach. I have a theory for what's going on this season, and I'll say it at the end of the episode, but I have like a big overarching theory for what I think is going on.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that one. He was acting a little bit out of character for Q, like kind of a angry Q.
Yes,
very short-tempered.
Yeah, and Picard even asks him, like, are you okay? Like, are you well? Right? We even get like a moment where he slaps Picard, which is...
Q, have a Snickers.
Yeah. Have a Snickers, please. Could you imagine if that was the cure to galactic fury? Just have a Snickers bar, please.
Yeah, but he slapped Picard.
Well, I mean, Picard also gave this phenomenal line of, I am too old for your bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. Which is essentially what Picard has said to Q many times, just a bit more explicit this time because Paramount Plus rather than network TV.
I love that this show lets Picard say bad words. I like that this show lets Picard be pissed. I mean, he can't say the fuck word, but he can say damn near everything else, and it's awesome.
Well, it's been said a couple times, just not by him.
Yeah, just not by him. I mean, yeah, that's true. But I always forget what the ruls for that are on streaming. But like,
I don't think there are.
I don't think there are either.
I don't think there are either. That's a lot of people get upset about like, oh, it hurts too much. Like, yeah, they're people. That's like that's what happens in that. Yeah, that's what would happen in real life. Welcome to life. But no, I love that he is just clearly. Oh, great. Good. You're back. You fucker. What the hell? I like that. I like that at the beginning of this episode.
We even get this neat moment where they like look at the sky and they see what's above my screen or in my background right now, right? They've got this hexagonal shield pattern above the atmosphere, and we see it from in space too. And it is below the cloud layer, but it's definitely inside of Earth's atmosphere, right? So it's not some kind of planetary defense shield. We've always seen those outside of the atmosphere because duh, right? This is something different. And Q even starts to tell him this is a world where like humanity kept their planet on life support rather than overcoming their like technological destruction of the planet. Clearly mentioning us in the real world destroying poor Earth. Yeah. So that was a good reference. I like it when Star Trek brings in real world stuff, especially as a plot element here.
Yeah. Didn't they call them the sun shields? Mm-hmm. I think. Yeah. Yep. So like implying that like ozone's fucked, bro. Like
ozone's fucked
that shit up. So.
Or the greenhouse effect has gone rampant, right? Like this is the only thing that keeps Earth habitable. Yeah. So at this point, Picard realizes that they're actually on Harvest Day, which is the same kind of thing that he had just had in the previous episode. So again, more clearly showing that Q is showing an alternative version of the same reality, the same day almost, or maybe the day before, from a different perspective.
It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Picard even goes straight up and asks him, like, what do you want, Q? Is this just more of the trial, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think
I like how Picard really voices his displeasure here because, and as we said in TNG, you know, of course he was agitated, but now he's just downright pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because this man just saved, well, a year and some ago, just saved a whole ass planet full of androids. Saved, you know, Soji himself died, came back to life because Soong was lucky enough to have just a golem sitting there ready, you know.
Yeah.
He's tired. He just wants to make his wine and vibe. That's it. And now suddenly
he likes being the Chancellor of the Academy too, though. He likes having that hand in molding the next generation. He doesn't want to be involved in Q's bullshit. I get it.
He's tired. He's exhausted. He's tired. And I like that this scene is less of like, ooh, space mystery and like, oh, this is scary, and more of him going, God damn it. Why? Stop it. Just leave me in peace, you asshole. And I like that about it. I like that I feel like it's a different interaction than we've seen them have in a while, at the very least, of just like, he's crazy and Picard's pissed, and that's different, and it's new, and it's awesome, and I'm excited to see what happens.
It reminds me a lot of the one time we saw Q on Deep Space Nine, right, where he and Sisko essentially end up boxing, and Picard never punched me. Okay, cool. He's not Picard. Got it. Same thing's going on here. Picard has changed over the last few decades, right? He's not the same Picard that you knew on the Enterprise D. Right. He doesn't have the same patience for your shenanigans, Q. So we get this cool scene where Picard literally just asks him, what do you want? And Q answers very cryptically, like, I could tell you, but you're far too clever to listen, right? Which goes straight to this idea that this is another lesson, even if he doesn't want to call it one, right?
Yeah.
Here's where we get the slap after Picard says that he's had enough of Q's stupid patronizing. Bit of a bloody nose for Picard there.
I mean, it was a pimp slap.
Yeah.
Like it was a thunderclap. It's like the Count from Sesame Street.
The only thing that bothered me.
2, 3 pimp slaps.
Really good impression, Jay. Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed that. The only thing about that particular scene that bugged me is how quickly like the nose bleeding happens and then just stops at that one point. Just because it's clearly just like, I don't know.
Hanging off the lip.
Yeah.
It's like wipe your wipe it away. Come on.
Well, just because like there's no like slow progression of it that they could have done with like VFX and stuff. It's mostly just like, let's put a fake blood thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm just surprised that a slap even triggered a nosebleed, to be honest.
He's old as fuck though. And I mean that golem
yes.
but like, and like the membranes are probably screwed up, but like I don't know how old people work, but like sorry, Sir Patrick, but there's this, but like just the idea of like, yeah, I mean, if he gets slapped in the face by Q and Q is as crazy as Q is being, I mean, that even restrained, like he's probably going to fuck him up pretty bad. But also that like, you know, I had a point with that, but anyway, I'm not a makeup artist, and so I'm not going to like go sit here.
No, I feel what you're getting at. It is a little weird that it just stopped.
It bothered me that it just like it was there, like there was no progression. It never, you know, and it's clearly like anyway, it bugged me. But like it's a good. But I liked that it was there because it showed like, oh shit, that ain't good.
It was not a gentle. It was not a gentle love tap. Yeah. Cool. So. Q responds with, this is not a lesson, it's a penance. Again, very menacingly, right? And then he snaps his fingers again, and we get a record player playing a song. And the song is, you'll forgive my butchering of French here, but Non je ne regrette rien, right? Which is
better than what I could have said.
Either way.
It's Edith Piaf. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Edith Piaf's version of it. Yeah, it's Edith Piaf's version of it. It's great. So we didn't mention it in our last review because it just slipped my mind, but the song has some significance outside of Star Trek that I think should be brought up here, right? Mm-hmm. So the song is used in the movie Inception as like a trigger for when you're inside of a dream of a dream of a dream, right? And it's used to synchronize actions between the layers. One of the gimmicks that's used in the movie really well, right? I don't know what the meaning is here yet, but it's so recognizable in its use in that movie and other movies that I'm certain there's something more to it here, right? Like it's used in The Dreamers, it's used in Intolerable Cruelty, it's used in Mon Amour, like it's used in a lot of movies, usually signifying that this is something serious and involves dreaming.
Well, yes, but also, I mean, the song in general, like I speak French and I'll still butcher the name of it, but the song in general about is, you know, I regret nothing. And this sort of, you know, I haven't read the lyrics in a while, but basically just, you know, no, I don't regret anything. And this, you know, this whole idea of this new timeline, probably very dystopian and fucked up. And so I think it was useful to put it in there as this sort of idea of like, either Q not regretting what he's done or somehow him trying to tell Picard that he should regret some shit that he's done. And
well, he even says that, right? He says that he's had enough of Picard's obstinance and stubbornness and insistence in changing in all the ways but the one that matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you. I agree that the name of the song is also significant for sure. And if you want to repronounce it just so that the listeners know what it actually sounds like, feel free.
Oh boy, I have French followers that are going to fuck me up for this, but it should be non je ne regrette rien. It's the R's that are the hard part of that. But
yeah, see, I'm Hispanic. I want to roll those R's, but I know I'm not supposed to.
It was close. So. No, I mean, because it's not quite a roll. It's more of a
yeah,
like close enough. You did all right. But yeah, that's Edith Piaf. I think that's 40s. Anyway, there. Also, like,
the song is written in 56, but Edith Piaf's version is 1960.
Never mind.
It's later than we think. Yeah, it's later than you think. Yeah. Either way, I think that's a good use of the song because it definitely makes you think that there's something afoot here because there's a matter of regrets. Absolutely. That's certainly the issue here. So they start exploring a little bit of his household a little bit more while they're walking around, and the song continues to play from an old-timey record player. And he notices that the house is staffed by Romulans that are kind of like in the same kind of uniform slaving away because they're literally slaves.
Yeah. And they didn't even really want to look at him like, you look me in the eye, you die, kind of thing. So
yeah, this Picard is not someone to be fucked with.
Right. No. Well, and he's apparently has a very big reputation behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even Q even says the line, right? Like, how could you run paradise if you didn't have staff? And why pay when you can have alien slaves? So yeah, Picard says literally, I would never do such a thing. Q laughs and says that these moral convictions are the luxury of victors. These guys have had a harder life than you have. So
oh, okay. I like that line. I like that phrase. It's kind of like history is written by the victors. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, it shows that there's a lot of changes here versus Picard's timeline. Now, we know Picard is aware of the mirror universe, so he knows that there is a version of this of their reality that is also, you know, dark. But this one is different, right?
Oh yeah.
So
they go into
no one has goatees.
No goatees
that he can see. So we're not in the mirror universe.
It's not the Terran Empire. It's just
the Confederation of Earth, rather.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Federation, that's a name.
It's a name.
About that.
Yeah. So they enter the study where Picard is like seeing a bunch of weapons along the walls. You see like Cardassian rifles. You see old Klingon stuff from Discovery. You see the Torchbearer's space uniform, which was really cool to see there. Mm-hmm. Like there are a million little references that I wish Jag were here to tell us. Right. Like it's all over the walls. There's a Vulcan Weirpa on one of the walls. Like it's really dense. Right. And then he comes over to like these pedestals with skulls on them. Now, the pedestals themselves have decorations on them. They have weapons hanging on the sides or chains or like things related to those people, right?
Mhm.
And he points out that this one was Gul Dukat, executed in the Ithian forest after a hell of a fight to take the Cardassian capital. He's the reason why this Picard is in a synthetic body. Then there's General Martok, killed after bioengineering virus decimated Kronos, which is probably why his skull looks more like a Discovery Klingon a bit than like the traditional Klingon skull, but not by much. And then Sarek, beheaded on the steps of the Vulcan Science Academy in front of his wife and son. I wonder which son, I wonder which wife. But yeah,
this scene was.
You can pick two sons or who knows which wife at the time. But isn't that exactly what happened in the Mirror Universe? I remember something about Sarek being decapitated on the steps of something. I swear. And it was before this episode. There's something about that is very, very, very familiar. And I couldn't say where I heard it, but there's something in that's happened before. And
it wouldn't shock me if that were an Easter egg, considering the work that Dave Blass put into this. By the way, shout out to that guy, because holy shit.
Oh, wait a minute. No, it wasn't in Coda. I don't think.
It's certainly not in one of the episodes.
No, not it's, but it came from somewhere. I'm just saying it.
Maybe it might have been one of the. It could have been one of the comics too. There's so much out there in general. Yeah. But no, I mean, I
love the skull references. That was cool. I just like hearing the names of characters that have come before.
Did you notice that one of the skulls, there was a Ferengi one and it had the Nagus' staff up against the pedestal?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
So the thing about it for me as an artist, I mean, I'm not much of a sculptor, but like looking at these things and seeing how they figured, okay, well, we might look at the bones of sharks to discover, like for the Ferengi, like bone, cartilage, ear moment. And then also it was nice to see Gul Dukat dead. But just to fuck that guy. But I hate him. I hate the guy. I haven't even watched all of DS9. Fuck, I hate the guy. But it was really.
Well, where's Kai Wynn's skull? Because really, my child, that skull deserves to be up somewhere.
That's a good point. Yeah, that as well.
And I'm sure it is. But this is. I took this as a room where, for the audience, we're supposed to see distinct skulls of different races and different characters. And you've got Sarek's, great. Well, Kai Wynn's, it's going to be the same kind of looking skull, really. So, but I'm sure it's around somewhere. Oh, you know who has it? You know who has that?
General
one?
Cisco.
Yes, that's right.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay, it's on this table, except for the baseball. Okay, go ahead.
I have a few things to say. I'm sorry, I have things to say because I want to talk about it. Like, I watched a video that was retweeted by Star Trek Today, talking about how they created all these little Easter eggs and like all of it, and one of them that really stood out to me, was the shark bones for the Ferengi ears. And then also the Vulcan skull with the temples that are slightly enlarged for mind melding, which is just like such a little tiny detail to add. And it's so cool. Yeah. I want to go ahead and shout out Dave Lass. I hope to God I'm saying his name correctly. And all the production team, the props department. That was my knuckle that just cracked. Anyway, the props department, that hurts so bad. But I mean, y'all, wow, it's incredible. It's really well done. And I love all of the research that went into just making some skulls. I mean, you could have just put some bones anywhere and like, the ridges go here, whatever. But like enlarged temples for the mind melding and the looking at different creatures to figure out, okay, well, is it bones or is it cartilage? Do we do this or do we do that? As I thought it was absolutely awesome. I thought it was really cool.
Susie, just let you know, there are risks to be taken when you talk with your hands. Popping a knuckle. Yeah. I mean, a finger sprain to just.
It's okay.
I don't want you to be hurt. Okay. Sorry.
No, I'll be fine. That happens all the time. I just, that one hurt more than usual. It's fine. It's very late. I'm tired.
There's an old joke that I've heard many times, and I think it's pretty accurate. It's, how do you shut up a Hispanic? You tie their hands.
Oh, I've heard that one before. Yeah.
I, for one, can totally vouch for that being true. If I'm getting emotional or talking about something I care about, my hands are everywhere. So I get it. But yeah, it's a stereotype, but I think it's a pretty accurate one.
For me, I think it's just the autism. Maybe. Not to be on the nose, but I think that's probably why.
Oh my God, it's starting early. Renzo, you got to get us through this because we're going to slap back in the face.
Sorry.
Get control of this podcast.
I will say I really liked the Borg skull that was there, and there's a skull that looks like Diablo from Diablo 3, right? Like I don't know what that skull goes to, but it's real fucking menacing.
Are you talking about the long one, the one with the kind of the
wide with horns or something?
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's also looks like a Gordon skull, which is pretty cool, but not 100% sure on that one. But yeah, the big one that looks something really demonic is crazy looking. I really do love the props department. One thing I wanted to point out for you, Susie, I don't know if you noticed it, but the color on the Vulcan skull is actually slightly greenish or grayish, right? Different color than the bone of all the others.
Yeah. That I'll tell you why I don't like that. From what I have been told from members of the Trek community who are Jewish, the idea of Vulcan skin being green is an anti-Semitic trope. I don't know why. I haven't done the research into it myself personally, but from what I hear from people, especially artists who will see people's renditions of Spock and other Vulcans as green, or for some reason, I haven't done the research into it and I would need to, but it's to them an anti-Semitic trope. So I kind of wish that would stop. Not because,
is that like blackface to them as it would be?
I think
to me,
I really can't say because I haven't done the research into it. I know that I read about it at some point, and
I've never heard that. That's
completely forgot about. It's completely gone over my mind. It's something most about the breed, I think.
Most of the bad Jewish stereotypes are get assigned to the Ferengi, if anything, not so much the Vulcans.
100%. Yeah. No, that's true.
To give you some historical context, right? The symbol that Vulcans use is actually the sign of the Cohanim, which is like a Jewish religious order, right? Like that's where it came from. It's something that Leonard Nimoy saw and used as his symbol for it, right? Like, and he was raised Jewish. So I don't know. Either way, I think that it's perfectly fine to give them copper-based blood, and as such, they're green. I don't particularly care much.
And to me, again, I haven't done a ton of research into it. Just from what I understand, that's why if I were to ever draw Spock, I would draw him not green, because from what I've heard from people speaking to me about it, it's been like, hey, not great. Anyway, that's just something to remember that I've heard many people talk about.
So a little bit later in the same room, we get a pan over to the great painting of the CSS World Razor, which is a terrifying version of the Enterprise D, right? Like the thing is legitimately menacing looking, big hangar bays. We mentioned it at the beginning of, or at the end of the last episode on our little like bonus cut that got added in. But yeah, Q actually even asks Picard about like the things. Q wants to push him along on this storyline, right? And Picard literally goes, I'm not going to play your game. And then Synth Harvey shows up, played by Alex Deal again, asking if he wants to answer to the designation Q now, because Q's not here anymore. He's gone and Harvey didn't see him. So this whole interaction was something that only Picard could experience. In fact, the Romulans that he saw in the kitchen when he was talking to Q probably don't remember there being a Q there either. Very much in line with Q's like omnipotent powers of like, nobody else can see me but you, dude.
Mm-hmm. Well, but that's been, if that's true, that's been the first time that would be a theory that for whatever reason, Q appeared this time in a fashion that only Picard could see him.
Not
now,
true.
with the
true. Remember, in All Good Things, many times Picard or Q is there and nobody else could see him but Picard.
Well, but that I know what you're talking about. It was when Picard was at the first launch of the Enterprise D, and he saw all those the people in the courtroom, but Q wasn't there in that part.
Yeah. I mean, there's more than just that. There's also conversations that he has with Q and nobody else believes him that only he is experiencing Q. Q's omnipotent. I don't think this is a stretch for Q to just make it so that only Picard notices I'm here kind of thing.
Okay.
All right. So then we get Picard watching a recording of a speech of his own transmitted. And he was talking about the brave crew of the CSS World Razor fought for a pure universe and subjugating savage civilizations and boldly conquering warlike alien worlds. Right. It's definitely unsettling. It's supposed to be. So it worked. Harvey again is like, hey, let me get you your morning usual. And he thinks it's a cup of Earl Grey tea. It's not. It's Colombian black roast coffee, where he notes this really is like a bad timeline. So.
I love that evil Picard drinks coffee. That's good. That's a good little thing to put in there. I knew it was.
Well, he's not going to drink a caramel frappuccino. You know, it's going to be something with put some hair on your balls.
Black coffee, but hair on your. Okay. We're really getting into the late hours tonight.
Again, Picard asks Harvey about Laris, thinking maybe she was employed at the house at some point, and he does a record search and finds that Laris and her husband Javan were both leaders of the Free Romulus movement, and both were killed at the gates of Romulus. And there are tribute photos if Picard wants to see them. Picard does not want to see them, obviously. And then he is reminded by Harvey that his shuttle is coming by in 2 hours to take him to the presidential palace. And here Picard, trying to get into character, says, like, why is the great general being called to the palace? And then Harvey's like, but sir, it's Eradication Day. Obviously you've got to go, kind of thing. This Picard does not know what Eradication Day is, but he's playing along. It reminds me a lot of the original Mirror episode of TOS, where they are good people stuck in a dark timeline trying to pretend to be their evil counterparts, and it's rough.
Well, but and that's the thing that I thought was pretty peculiar and telling of that episode, was that the good, I guess you call them the good version, the prime timeline version, were able to adjust, at least in a way, to play the part of, like, to improvise and play that part of, we're supposed to be like evil and ruthless. Whereas the ones from the Mirror Universe had no chance. Like, they got locked up immediately. Which I always wondered, and I know it's part of the plot, et cetera, but why would that be, do you think? Why is it?
They say it in the episode. It is easier for a civilized man to pretend to be a savage than for a savage to pretend to be civilized, right? Or something to that effect, right?
Something like that, what Spock said.
Yeah. That's not direct translate or direct verbatim, but it's something to that effect.
Yes.
Which I think is true, right? Like, in this situation, there's no bad Picard trying to be good Picard in a universe somewhere else. This is just our Picard in this dystopian timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So cut to our next scene. We're in San Francisco and we get a male announcer saying that citizens to enjoy Eradication Day. Someone wakes up in bed, and I'll let Susie Q describe this a little bit.
You're on.
Yeah, that's my girl. So 7 wakes up in bed, goes to the mirror, goes like, that's weird. I have 2 eyebrows now, basically. And my favorite part of the scene is where she does all of these cognitive tests to see if she can figure anything out. You know, am I dreaming? Is this real? What's going on? You know, she still has that sensibility of, like, immediately goes into logic, because she has to focus, and, you know, writes with the lipstick on the mirror and the candle and everything. I will say, personal anecdote, I was at the premiere. So I saw episode 1 and 2. So I've had to keep my mouth shut for weeks, and I'm tired of it. But when 2 days after the premiere,
lucky.
I'm so lucky, and shout out to the person who gave me that link, and they'll know who they are. But anyway, it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. But 2 days after that, I had a dream, and I didn't know if I was dreaming or not. So what did I do? I remembered in the dream 7 of 9 had done that shit, and I went over to, like, flowers or something to see if I could smell them, and I couldn't, and I knew I was dreaming. So thanks for the guide to lucid dreaming, Star Trek Picard season 2. But yeah, it's a really cool scene, and I can't remember how anyway, she sees the badge on the desk, and then I'll let you keep going, because I don't actually remember how it fully. No worries. So she does the little cognitive test, and while she's doing it, she holds her hand over the fire, like on the candle, just to see if there's pain. There's pain, and that's when she notices, like, a wedding ring on her finger, and she hears the door chime. She turns and goes, "Raffi? Nope, it's not Raffi. It's the magistrate who comes through, who addresses. Dad. Yeah, it's Soji's dad is the actor. Yeah, it's Cyprian's dad. Yeah.
He comes in and addresses her as dear, indicating that he's the husband. And a male synthetic that looks a lot like Harvey follows in as well, saying coffee's on the way to prepare for the Eradication Day ceremony, right? And he addresses her as Madam President. And she's got this moment of like real confusion going on.
There's something
respect for my president.
There was something that it almost felt like she was punching down when it came to this dude. There was just something about them that didn't match, like didn't go together. I just kept thinking, why this dude? Like, we don't know.
Yeah, he's just some guy. Like,
we don't know.
I know.
On the wiki, it's listed as, it says partners and it just says husband.
I was expecting more of like a Brad Pitt looking dude, or listen, this version of Seven might be some kind of social climber or some like real aggressive political animal. Think like Cersei from Game of Thrones, right? Yeah.
And this is a guy who had connections. He comes from old money, or he has old influence, and so she married him for a reason, right? It may not be anything more than that, right? He may not even realize. We don't know.
Okay.
But there are perfectly valid reasons why it could be him.
Yeah, and empires of old, the marriages were for alliance, not for love. It's not a thing that happened. So, the idea that she might have married just somebody with better social standing than her at the time, and then probably climbed up, because it's said that he's a magistrate. Yes. Yeah, I believe. Yeah. But anyway, so it's something. What I love is how this happens later, this happens more later in the episode, but she is just how like generally aloof she is with this guy. She's like, and it's very like, I have a girlfriend, fuck off behavior. And I love that for her. Queen shit. Anyway, I'm done. Sorry. I think she's cool.
Well, so next scene is S7 actually entering what's apparently her like presidential office, and the magistrate's just going on and on and on about the upcoming speech and asking for like, do you prefer this phrase or this phrase? And she just goes, I don't care, that one, the second one, which was great. And then she starts pulling up news reports about like insurgents of rebels in Okinawa, and then news from the Vulcan front. Notably, when they show Okinawa here, it's actually Hong Kong, which is an interesting choice. Don't know why, but that's what they chose. The stuff on the Vulcan front, she says that she wants information straight from the front. And the magistrate says, okay, I'll get you General Sisko. He's in charge of the Vulcan front. And she goes, no, I want information from this Rios colonel, this guy. And he seems kind of confused, but
I wish, I knew we weren't going to get it, but it would have been so nice to have seen Avery Brooks in this episode. I'll settle for the mention, but
somebody pointed out on Twitter, and I liked this, that General Sisko could also be Jake. I know it's not, but I thought it was cool, and I thought it was an interesting thing to bring up. Also, I know he'd
be pretty young for general.
Yeah, that's true. it was just something I thought I'd bring up. But yeah, it would have been nice to see. It bothers me, but no, and I know I've talked about it, and I'll talk about it again because I'm me. Seven in the Imperial, the presidential suit. It's well tailored. It fits her perfectly. It's awesome. It's badass. It's I think that Michelle Hurd mentioned in the video I retweeted about from Star Trek about sort of like where they are and what the costumes. It's all hard lines, tailored, very like supposed to be menacing, but it still fits within the world, and I really, really love the costumes in this bit. Yeah. But and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You do not have to put a woman in a spandex suit for 3 years. Just put her in a well-tailored suit, and people will go insane, and she'll also be able to do her job. Anyway, well, it's great. That's an old gripe, but
this isn't 90s Trek, so that's a good thing.
And I love
Rick Berman and Brandon Braga away from all this Trek stuff, and you won't see the skin tight, very revealing uniforms.
And that was a trope in the 90s anyway. That was a thing that happened anyway. But I'm so glad that Seven has costumes that still suit her very well, and she looks great and confident and badass, and is able to wear practical clothing that an ex-Borg drone would wear to do things that required like kicking ass. And so I think that, the Fenris Ranger costume is great, but the presidential suit is very much like, even though it's heels, of course it's heels because president. It's practical. It's very dystopian, because dystopian uniforms in empires like that are always very gray, very hard lined. It makes sense for it to be that way. And I just think that costume design knocked it out of the park with this, especially the way that the darts are done in the front. It's awesome.
Oh, I just want to give a quick shout out to the people who set up her room too, right? In her wake up scene, it is beautifully decorated. It is a very well designed setting for it too. They even had like a convenient heavy object for her to pick up for like, if I have to bash somebody's head in, this is what I'm using. Yep. I'm ready.
I will set up. But I will take that a whole hell of a lot more than the episode of Discovery we just reviewed, where Jet Reno had the wherewithal to think that, well, I might get stunned here, so let me just happen to grab the one thing that I might need later. I'm surrounded by heavy objects in here. If I think something's going to happen, I'll hit you in the head with my computer tower or monitor. Every room has some kind of, now, if you have a room that doesn't have some weapon in it, that's you fault.
That's a you problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's somebody caught you slipping there.
You need to be
at that point.
You need to be prepared.
It's my fault,
in every room you have it. You need to have a weapon.
Right. So this scene, after she has to just talk to Rios, ends with like the magistrate being a little hesitant or whatever. And she goes, I need some coffee, some privacy, and that comms channel. And because she's the president, she gets what she wants, and it happens.
Queen.
So
I love that. I love that she's just able to be like, you do that, go. It's just nice, because I mean, she's used to everybody being afraid of her, I guess. And now everybody's afraid of her, but
no implants.
What she wants. And it's so like, it's very much like, do what you want, queen.
I really liked seeing her in charge that way. I think that like as a character, she's always had the wherewithal to be in charge of people, even though she doesn't really get the chance to be. She might have been in charge of the Fenris Rangers. We don't really know, but still, I liked seeing this a lot. Yeah. All right. So cutting to our next scene, we've got Rios on the La Sirena itself, fighting as part of a task force of a whole bunch of other Kaplan 17 fast freighters, right? And they are all similarly painted. They are all ready and fighting in orbit of Vulcan, and they are fighting Vulcan ships that we've seen before. These are not a new design. These are from Discovery. These are the Vulcan courier ships that we saw in Disco. And it's pretty cool that we get to see that the Vulcans, because they've been under invasion or attack for so long, they just don't have ships like the Chiron that we saw in Lower Decks. They're stuck with these older things fighting in orbit just for survival.
Mm-hmm.
I thought those ships looked familiar.
Yep. Anyways, one of the other captains calls Rios and commends him on the tactics and goes, they're stomping out the green bloods this way. And Rios is clearly flustered. He doesn't know what's going on. He is a little terrified by everything that's going on. And then he starts to see Vulcan being bombarded from orbit. We see massive explosions hitting Vulcan. And and then he gets a comms message from President Hansen. As he opens the channel, she goes, this is a secure line. So if there's anything you need to say about anything that's standing out,
wink, wink,
tell me. You can talk here. Anything out of the ordinary. And then he just goes, 7. Thank God, Rios. Okay.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's really great. It's just very sort of like, if you need anything,
right.
And it's very much sort of like, blink twice if you need
help. Tell me anything. It's okay. Anything.
No one's listening. Just let me know what the hell is happening, please. Thank you.
They swap notes really quickly too. She's like, the last memory I had is the auto destruct on Stargazer. Sorry, she says the activation of the auto destruct on Stargazer.
Yeah.
And Rios responds with like, I didn't expect heaven to look like D-Day over Vulcan, right? Like death to look like D-Day over Vulcan, which is a good point too. So something or someone moved them. Now, 7 has had encounters with Q a few times too. Like she knows what he is. Mm-hmm. So she could probably start surmising, okay, so what are some entities that could do shit like this? He's probably near the top of her list too. So she's probably got a pretty good guess as to what's going on.
That's a good point. Yeah.
One thing I want to say, this is not quite as, I mean, I want it to be relevant more later in later episodes, but I want to see 7 because we know that she still employs logic when she's stressed, like the candle and everything and the pain receptors. But I want to see what she does without the Borg enhancements, because even though she's tried to reclaim her humanity all these years, there are things about her Borg parts that she's like used to, and like cognitive ability and general strength. Like, what without the hand implant, what does that do? I mean, do you have decreased strength in that limb now? I mean, is there I want there to be little.
I think we'll get
that we see. We do a little bit, yeah. And I feel like we might get a little bit more of it, and I'm a little excited to see how they approach that.
I think we'll get a good bit of it throughout the season, especially once they do the time travel bits.
Oh yeah,
and I know that I want to argue that they did that in this episode too, but I'll say it when we get there.
No, they did. Yeah, 100%. I just want to see more.
Cool. So she recalls him back to Earth on her presidential authority, which is a nice flex, and wanting to talk face to face. So back to Okinawa, and here again, we're showing actually Hong Kong, but calling it Okinawa. And we see Elnor running away from a big explosion that's going on in a building. And he meets up with this woman who's telling him that these are the attacks that they both planned together, an explosion for the crimes against Cardassia, Andoria, Kronos, Vulcan, Romulus. And then another explosion, and then like some Confederation soldiers start shooting at them. They kill her. He starts running, and they run into an old friend who removes her hood at like the last second. And Raffi steps out, and Elnor is relieved to see her. Like the last time they were together was on the Excelsior. And then more guards show up, and Raffi kills them essentially, right? Like as soon as they don't expect it, she just guns them all down mercilessly.
Because she's a badass.
Not on stun, right? So
she doesn't play around. Raffi does not fuck around.
Raffi does not fuck around when it comes to her space elf.
Her people. Yeah.
Neither does Elnor, though. Remember, later in the episode, he does not fuck around either.
No, when it comes to Space Legolas, she is very protective.
And I love that. I love that. I really hope we get to see more of like Elnor, the space nun, the Romulan nun, and his angry space moms. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It's another little gay family, kind of like Discovery, but more violent.
Remember how Raffi lost essentially her relationship to her kid, so here she's building a new one. This is her surrogate child, and it's good. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Okay, so Raffi tells him to play along, holding him at gunpoint, announcing she wants him alive for questioning when they run into more guards. Elnor protests that he doesn't know anything, and Raffi's like, I don't know anything either, but like better me than turning you over to the security guards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So next scene is back with President Hansen at the Eradication Day address, like discussing plans for it. And then the magistrate asks like if her discussion with Colonel Rios was productive, and she goes, yep, it was cool. He starts to be like, I understand that you're nervous for this big momentous day. And she's like, she was clearly annoyed at the insinuation that she was nervous about it. You could tell it from her face. It was great. But she notes like while they're walking, it's a very West Wing-esque scene. They're walking down like a hallway, and is like, tell me, why is Eradication Day important? Right? Like as a challenge, like as like a teacher asking a student a question that they should know the answer to. And,
I took it more as because she doesn't know what it is.
She doesn't know.
She needs to find out, and that's
that's why she's doing it. But the way that she does it is like as like a how can I ask this without it being strange kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, she's challenging him and being authoritative in the way that she knows that he'll be used to, hopefully by this point, from her. Because again, I feel like they're not really married for love. I feel like he's more of just her kind of dude. And he does stuff, and she does most of the stuff anyway. But that's really articulate way to go. But
so the magistrate explains that it's their tradition. Every year they eradicate dissidents or aliens, and this one's a special event. They're going to eliminate one of the Confederation's greatest enemies of all time, and that Dr. Gerardi should be prepared for her arrival soon. And like Seven's like, Gerardi? Oh, like clearly recognizing that, okay, I'm not the only one here. This is not just me here and not just Rios. Okay, time to rebuild the squad, right? So we go into Gerardi's lab for the next scene, and we've got a Pastel Agnes like on her desk, and a cat is talking to her from a computer screen. The cat is amazing.
I love Spot 73. I love it.
Yep. Voiced by Patton Oswalt of all people, which is great.
Really?
That was awesome too. Yeah, that's Patton
Oh,
Oswalt.
shit. I knew I couldn't place that voice. I said, where have I heard this voice? Spot 73. Yeah, that was great. I thought
He's a
that was
huge Trekkie too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me at all. Yeah, that seems like him. But no, I mean, it's I love Spot 73, and I think he's perfect for that. Honestly, I think that was a really, really, really good casting choice.
So what he's saying though is also pretty interesting. He's very subversive. Like he's saying the kind of things that'll probably get somebody in jail, which means that this version of Agnes Gerardi is also probably pretty much a dissident. Even
But
though
also brilliant. So
yeah,
they need her.
absolutely brilliant. But she's also still working with like high value prisoners that are locked in her tank. So
yeah, well, and she spends so much time in seclusion, so of course must be nice to have a cat to talk to. It's like a lot of times when I'm driving somewhere that I know where I'm going, I have Google Maps playing just so I can hear the voice, just so it's like not lonely when you're driving.
yeah, it's like playing a podcast when you're on a long drive.
Yes.
All right. So Gerardi, when she wakes up, the cat responds that like your very best friend. And then she's like, okay, so I'm insane. I'm having a delusion. I'm dead, or I'm in some strange mirror universe. And then Her Excellency, the President, is announced. Gerardi notices that Seven walks in and asks about her implants. Before pointing out her husband, Seven points out this is her husband, and it's been a while. So that solidifies in Gerardi's head that, strange mirror universe. Got it.
Yeah.
So the magistrate asks to see the prisoner, cell M510, which I think is a reference to the M5 computer. I think it's a reference there. She kind of like fumbles through on the keyboard pass and gets the Borg Queen brought out. And this Borg Queen is different than the last one that we saw. This one looks much more like a traditional Borg Queen that we've seen in Voyager and in First Contact.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder, because the one we saw on the Stargazer was the Borg Queen, but why was she that's a discussion for another time.
I think personally, that Borg Queen that we saw, obviously, to me, reads as like very, 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 very futuristic. Considering all the timey-wimey bullshit that's going to happen in this season, would make sense to me if that were just like a hyper-evolved Borg Queen. But I really like that we get the traditional style of Borg Queen. And I think that Annie Wershing, I believe I pronounced her name correctly. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. Does a wonderful job. And I'm excited to see more of her in this season. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
I actually really liked it, like the way that the character was presented in this too, right? Because this is a Borg Queen whose collective has not just been cut off from her, it's been destroyed. She's the last Borg, right? That's how they're presenting it here. She understands she's the last, and she's a broken character. She's mumbling to herself. She's all alone. She even tries to mention it to Gerardi, calling her a fragile little teacup, right? Being like, you understand what it's like to be alone everywhere, right? So the Queen replies that they're both unbelonging. Like, this is a character that is very much fucked in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about it that's almost more unsettling than the way we usually see the Borg, which is this sort of not confident, but just calculating, confident. Yeah, pretty much confident. The alien species that wants to take over everything and just goes, they're typically pretty uncaring. And in this scene, we see a Borg Queen that has absolutely lost it, has absolutely no idea what's going on, knows that something's up, but also knows that she's the last one of her kind and has absolutely no control over anything at this point. And so maybe in a way is reaching out to people that she knows might be vulnerable to me in a way that she hopes will kind of ground her back into that in a way, or maybe help her in some way. And I think that I think that is going to come up a lot more with Gerardi in this season. I think so too.
There are a few things that I wanted to say about that and the Confederation and their conquering whatnot. Now, would this be a good part to do that, or would it be better at the end?
I was going to bring it up here. Okay.
So hopefully it's not the same as what you were going to say, but I tend to find it very interesting that whether it's the mirror universe or here, anytime that people of Earth are depicted like this, or some kind of dystopian or conquering type universe, that they always seem to be able to beat the crap out of any race. And I mean, the Borg of all people. And I'm just wondering, what is it about humanity that if they along this path, they're kind of, I don't want to say barely keeping up, but they're certainly not like how they could be over here, where they're able to dominate everything, including the Borg. And I don't quite get that. Like,
I do.
What? Okay, let's hear it.
You go ahead, Prince.
Yeah. So you've read the famous Tumblr back and forth about humans in the warp core, right? Doc Brown alien race, essentially.
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're seeing here, right? If humans put their powers and put their creativity and put their ingenuity to good, then this is what we get. We get the Federation, which is the dominant power in its region. It is advanced and everybody is happy and utopian, right? Mm-hmm. But if you put those same pursuits towards destruction and war, you get a conquering empire. You get a destructive place that is terrifying. Things like the Genesis torpedo was invented to terraform planets really quickly. It is the most terrifying weapon imaginable. One bomb, and it remakes an entire planet that could be populated by billions into a new world for you to settle on. Easy. All at once, just one bomb, over and over and over. Oh, and if you still use protomatter and it blows up the planet, who cares? It was Kronos. We didn't live there anyways, right? If the Federation were evil and the Federation wanted to do awful things, they would be a sight to behold in terror. And that's what you're getting with this Confederation of Earth and with the Terran Empire. They are just terrifying. As for how they beat the Borg in particular, I think it's because of General Janeway. I think General Janeway must have still ended up in the Delta Quadrant, probably still blew them the fuck up somehow, and just was more effective at doing it and managed to, like, think of it this way. Episode 1 of Voyager, Janeway and her Intrepid class ship, probably called the Realm Razor or something, gets thrown to the Delta Quadrant by the Nacine at the Caretaker's Array. She goes, oh shit, sweet, a new gateway to conquer. Instead of like saving the Ocampa, fuck the Ocampa, she blows up a half a dozen Kazon warships, takes over the array, and starts bringing over ships from the Alpha Quadrant to conquer the Delta Quadrant. Now they've got the Nacine's array, they've got the technology there, and they start raising everything over there, right? Like, that's probably what happened. It's probably because of General Janeway that did this in the Delta Quadrant, and we know that Picard was involved because of the painting of the World Razor has him blowing up some cubes. So maybe he goes over there and helps out too, right? Like, it's something along those lines. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's something directly like we plugged in the virus that was going to blow up Q, except we don't have the morals to care about, the individual. So we just ruined the collective.
Mm-hmm.
I have two things. One, not to be a Janeway stan, but I didn't think of that until just now. And now that I'm thinking about it, yeah,
you want it,
awesome.
Yeah.
I want that. Now I'm like, ooh, General Janeway. There's a new version of evil Janeway. But no, yeah, Janeway stands have been so fed in the last few months. Anyway, but the second, my idea for, obviously, yeah, General Janeway makes total sense of like somehow they figured out a way to do it. But also, they mentioned that this is one of the more terrifying, more difficult enemies that they have encountered. So clearly the Borg are still fucking terrifying and a force to be reckoned with. But because they have spent, the Federation has beaten the Borg so many times that you have to assume that the Confederation, which has spent years and years and years and years and centuries upon centuries building a warlike empire, will probably be even better suited to beat the absolute shit out of the Borg. So in a way, it's almost they're the same type of evil. Yeah, they both want to bash the shit out of the other, and so it makes sense to me that they would be. We
get a line from Seven towards the end of the episode when they're talking about time travel, about how like this universe is roughly as advanced as ours, right? Mm-hmm. So the same way that we hear about the Ferengi in the beginning of TNG, right? They are roughly as advanced as us, more advanced in some places, less advanced in others. That's probably what's true here, right? This Confederation of Earth is probably more advanced in weapons. They are probably have bigger torpedo systems. They have probably better battleships. Cool. But they obviously can't do like terraforming because Earth is still fucked, right? They're using sun shields rather than just fixing the atmosphere. They're less advanced there. They're less advanced on replicators, I'll wager, because people still look like they're wearing rags, right? Like there's a trade-off here. And a civilization that puts all of its effort towards conquering and war stuff ends up like the Soviet Union, right? The average people didn't have toilet paper until like 1999. Like that's when toilet paper finally became readily available in every store across Russia, right? Jesus. After the fall of the Soviet Union. Yeah, it's rough. But they still had one of the largest militaries in the world and were a credible threat everywhere at the time. Maybe not so much anymore because, Ukraine, and they've been a joke. But yeah.
Well, yeah, but yeah,
so you get my point though, right, Big J? Like if you put all of your effort towards something, you'll probably be pretty good at it, especially if you don't have any moral quandaries against it.
Well, and doesn't war give innovation? Weren't the majority of innovations that have happened were because
this is a very testy subject. Like historians debate this one a lot.
Yeah, I'll say one thing that I think might not be so. Like the idea is like if you split an atom one way, you can like solve the way that we harness the energy of the sun or whatever it is. And then if you split the atom the other way, you can blow shit up really fast. Guess which one we tried first. So that's innovation does often occur in times of war, whether it's good.
So that's like actually
conflict breeds innovation.
Yes, but it doesn't have to be military conflict to breed innovation, right? So like when people were dying of the Spanish flu is when we developed a lot of the modern medical like ideas behind like quarantining and such, right? Even though there wasn't a war per se. It's just challenge breeds innovation.
Adversity.
Right?
Adversity breeds innovation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But as far as the nuclear thing, though, Susie, just so you know, the first nuclear experiments were not towards making a bomb. The first ones were actually towards making what was called a nuclear pile, which was just a self-sustaining heat source, which is more like a power plant than anything else. That's the first one. The one that worked when we had to actually like make it happen was they made the bomb first. But that's just because.
But it's not what we tried first. That's true. Yeah, no, yeah.
But you're right.
I think I heard that from like Jon Stewart. So that's an old quote that I just like happened to think of. But yeah, no, that's not. It just point being maybe not the best example, but the idea that adversity will breed innovation, whether for good or bad. That happens.
Yeah. One more notable thing in this scene, just before we move on to the next one, is as soon as the Borg Queen is emerging from like the pod that brings her down, Seven has a pretty visceral reaction to seeing her, right? Like she looks both at the moment afraid, disgusted, and then happy in like really quick succession, right? Like I'm afraid because it's Borg. Oh God, this is a fucked up Borg. Oh, this is the last of the Borg. Oh, good.
I'm glad you're here.
Real quick.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. And again, I want to just talk about how unbelievably skilled Jerry Ryan is and how much she has given Seven as a character. And I love it so much. I love that we get to see her sort of become her own different character from Voyager but I think that the thing that strikes me the most about this is in episode 1, we see Picard ask her, basically, is that ship Borg? And she can hear it. So she said, yeah. Yeah. And then in this episode, she doesn't hear anything from the Borg Queen. The only time she reacts is when the Borg Queen's in front of her and she can see her. And so that's probably like, oh shit, I didn't know that was happening.
Yeah. I would wager though that Queen couldn't transmit anything anyways. She's probably very isolated field wise, but yeah.
But I mean, she still has Borg technology. And so because Seven is completely Borgless at this point, she's Borg free, if you will. She can't hear anything, even if the queen is completely cut off. Like she can't hear shit. And so
Right.
she sees the Borg queen and goes, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh no, so I think it's a really, really cool scene and a very good scene where we see Seven dealing with that in the moment. And it's only a few seconds, but it's a masterclass.
You know what? I would have loved to hear Seven say when the queen was coming out, this bitch.
Yeah, this bitch again.
So we get this cool bit happening there where the magistrate immediately starts going like, oh, look, being in isolation has made her go mad. And then the queen says something along the lines of like, reality has been split and time has been broken. And Seven innately, without really thinking about it, just spits out that the queen is a trans-temporal consciousness. She's able to hear echoes from her counterparts across time and space. And then the magistrate looks at her and like, how do you know that? And she's like, oh, I read that somewhere.
She says, so I've heard.
Yes, or so I've heard, or so I've read.
At the water cooler we were talking about. Yeah.
At the water cooler. Oh my God. The dystopian Confederation water cooler.
As good as Seven is at faking being this president, she's dropping some hints here that she's not the legit one too.
Right.
Yeah, so she has to be careful about that. Then an officer reports to them that General Picard will be docking shortly. And then we go back and see Picard weaving his shuttle. Another synth approaches to escort him to the president's office. And then Picard sees Raffi and Elnor arriving with a bunch of guards.
And this Picard and how he acted this scene, getting into the character, I love how he did that. And you got to get to the part where the other guards tried to challenge Raffi and then got put in their place.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Raffi's bringing Elnor in for psycho interrogation, which sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
And she announces that she's got authorization to handle it herself, but there's another officer of the Confederation there who's like standing in her way, being like, who gave you authorization? That's not procedure. And Raffi clearly looks like she's about to bullshit something up real quick, or maybe go for her gun. Like she's not sure because she's not letting them take Elnor.
Right.
And then Picard shows up, speaks up, and goes, "I gave her authority."
Yeah, I think it's under whose authority, and he goes, "Mine, soldier." It's like, yeah. It's awesome.
The officer apologizes, looks kind of recalcitrant about having said anything at all, and like. They says bring the prisoner along, and then Raffi goes JL under her breath, and Picard admits that he's still wondering that himself at this point. So, but Elnor, in his complete and total transparency, goes, "No, I'm certain that was you."
I love him. I know. The thing is that I know that he's going to be at some point in this a hindrance in some way, somewhere, kind of like we saw on Free Cloud, and it's just like, we're lying. It's like, yes, Elnor, you've been here for 20 minutes. But like,
he's literally a teenager. I love it.
He's a little boy. He's just living his life.
I just think that absolute candor can be used appropriately for humor, and this is definitely a good way to use it too sometimes. But yeah, Picard mentions that to Raffi that Seven is president and they're going to go meet with her. And then Raffi goes, "Oh, she'll wear that gracefully."
I love the banter that they're still able to find in this. I love that we still get little bits and pieces of like, oh, they're mad at each other. Oh, they're not mad at each other. Whatever. I love it. It's great.
They still love each other, but kind of bitter exes at this point. And I like it.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
I don't know. I don't know if I would say anyway. I have opinions about that, but we'll talk about them later.
Okay. All right. So Magistrate then reports to his wife that Picard is here and he's petitioning for the title of Borg Slayer. Right. Pretty badass title.
Yeah.
And then the magistrate freaks out about the alien terrorist that's been brought in to close proximity to the president. But Seven is immediately covering that up and goes, "Nope, I'm the one who ordered it." And they all play their little parts. They keep talking about sensitive information that the prisoner has. So the magistrate is essentially like, make sure my wife is safe, essentially, kind of protective about it. The magistrate leaves. Picard just does this whole like, "Are you okay? Like, what the hell is going on here?" Picard says that he thinks they're in an alternate reality. But Seven mentions that the Borg Queen has a different theory, pointing at her in the room, which I don't think Picard had really realized she was there until that moment, which is a bit terrifying because Picard has lots of feelings towards the Borg too.
Yes.
We all know.
A lot of beef with the Borg.
Beef. Borg beef.
Borg beef.
Now, here Picard asks if it's the same queen as the one from the Stargazer. Seven says, no, this is a more typical one because there's a divergence in the timeline. Picard realizes that this is part of Q's shenanigans. Surprise.
Right.
He changed an event to transform their present from the past. This was not an alternate reality, but their own reality transformed because of this change. I think that that's like a nitpicking difference, right? But changing your reality creates a new one. That's just how branching worlds work.
It does, but it would also make the original reality inert unless you fix it, which is not the case with universes where you can just go.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the reason that they didn't want to do like an alternate universe, because that would be too easy, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Time travel still fucks me up.
Yeah,
it's supposed to.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's supposed to. That's all right.
But yeah, Picard even goes, even for Q, though, something seemed off, like something not quite sane, which is a good observation. It's what we all talked about before. Something that I think is interesting here, though, is Raffi is also a Starfleet officer and was a good friend of Picard's for a long time, right? She should know what Q is. She shouldn't require this explanation, right? Like, everybody seems to know about who Q is. Remember when Picard in season 1 of Picard goes into Starfleet Academy and somebody mentions, oh, he was the prime contact of the Q continuum with us.
Yes.
Right? Like, everybody should know this basic background except for Elnor. Elnor, dumb, but everybody else should know.
I never thought of that. You're right. You're absolutely right. Even if Picard never talked to Raffi about it, or still, it seems to me that Q and the Q continuum are required study at the Academy.
Probably. I mean, that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
But someone said on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, and it's funny as hell. Somebody said that Seven should have turned around and go, God, it's not his son, is it? It's not the baby one, is it? Because, I mean, that would have been beautiful. Because, I forget that she had an encounter with baby Q2.
Yes.
Oh, it's it's a terrible episode, but it's still
Junior.
one that I watch.
Q2 is a different one.
Q Junior.
Yeah, Q Junior. The Q2 is a different Q.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Q2 was the one that wanted to
suicide.
Yeah.
That was a different one. No. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, Q Junior. It's like, God, it's not his kid, is it? I thought it was.
It's actually the actor's son too, if I remember correctly.
It is.
That was actually John Delancey's son.
That is actually
John Delancey's
kid. Yep. That's true.
Okay, so Rios arrives over Earth, and the Borg Queen starts telling them that the world is a lie, the fiction of the what if, of the what was, and Gerardi agrees with her, and then they start detecting visitors. They all show up inside the room, and now you've got Picard, Seven, Raffi, and Elnor all kind of like happy to see Gerardi, happy to be back with them all, right? Picard approaches the Queen, recognized him right away as Locutus, which is different because the last Borg Queen kept calling him Picard, whereas this one sees him as Locutus, which again is something weird about the Stargazer Borg Queen.
Oh, good catch. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's weird. Borg have always referred to him as Locutus, except for the Borg Queen from the Stargazer.
Borg Queen. And part of that, when they do eventually blow up, is when she says, "Look up." And that's something his mother said frequently.
I'm not sure that the look up was a real thing that she said. I think it might have been like one of those in the mind's eye kind of moments. I'm not sure, right?
Maybe. But I mean, all I know is that there was that scene with his mother where she said that, where she said, like,
yes,
look up to the stars, etc. But I mean,
so there's going to be something behind that Queen saying Picard, whereas everyone else calls him Locutus. Okay.
I have a theory that it's Agnes. But I'm probably wrong.
Not Agnes.
But I thought it'd be. I know it's not, but I have a feeling she's gonna be involved somehow. Like it's. I don't know if she is.
She doesn't get to be that cool.
That's true. But
Why not? She's amazing.
I like Agnes.
She doesn't get to be there.
I like Agnes. Come on. She's just awkward. She's doing her best. That's me. Agnes is very much me in this situation going, aha, yeah, cool. That's what's happening. Fine. And like trying to figure it out.
So,
I love Agnes.
So Picard then asked the Queen, like straight up, what did Q change to turn the Earth into a totalitarian nightmare? And she like computes and goes, a temporal rescission, a single change in time in Los Angeles in 2024. And she tells Picard to seek the Watcher residing there.
The Watcher.
Any theories as to who the Watcher is?
I mean, I wanted to say Guinan at first, but like, no. And then I don't know. I don't have any theories as to that, but I also know somebody mentioned the Bell riots once or twice.
Yes. So that's
a big one.
So there are three possibilities if it's somebody that we know, right? I think it's either Guinan. It's possible. We know that she was on Earth not long before then, and she's been around, right? But I don't think they're going to use Guinan because they would have to de-age her to make that fit, and I think that that's a little weird, right?
But
so
de-aging is freaking insane now. Like it is very, very, very good.
Yeah, but if she were going to be a really big part of it, and they would have to, I feel like it would end up being one of those like Luke Skywalker situations where it would just be a little too creepy.
No, well, but did you see the Book of Boba Fett version of?
Yes, and
Luke?
I didn't like it.
What?
I didn't like it. I felt that it was a little bit too romantic. It's cool.
No, all right,
it's advanced.
It looked just like Mark Hamill at the time.
It did. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I feel like if they were to do that, it might take away from the story eventually. Just to me, it might be distracting. I haven't seen the full series, so I don't want to say it's bad.
I'm talking to the person that likes Twizzlers.
Going back to the subject.
Bye. I'm done. I'm out. Oh.
All right.
Yeah,
so
I walk into that one. All right.
So the Watcher, to me, I think it could be Cisco, right? Because the Bell riots are in 2024 as well. Maybe that's the change that Q did. He fucked with the Bell riots or something, or he fucked with Cisco, and now Cisco's been stuck here for a while or something. I don't think it's that. I don't think that they're going to do it because I think Avery Brooks is kind of out of the acting game at this point. So it's kind of rough to do. It'd be really cool, but I don't think it's likely. And the other one that I think is very possible is it could be Sarah Silverman as Rainn Wilson again, or Rainn Robinson. Sorry.
Wait, that'd be really cool.
But it's a bit on the obscure side. There are 2 episodes of Star Trek you would have had to see to understand that, and that's a bit.
But you don't need to know them to realize that she's somebody from this time that knows about time travel, knows about Starfleet and such, and she is not from that far away. She's from LA.
What about someone else that got stuck there in time, whether willingly or unwillingly, like somebody from, I do really, really, really think it's going to be someone we know. But
I mean, it could be another ancestor of Data, obviously another Soong.
Always.
Didn't somebody say on the Picard production team that there would be a significant tie-in to another series this season?
I hadn't seen that.
I think that was mentioned. Don't quote me, but I think that it was mentioned that there would be a significant tie-in to another series this season. I could be wrong. But if that were the case, the Sarah Silverman Sarah Silverman thing would make sense. The Cisco thing would make sense. But again, I think Avery Brooks is also out of the acting game. I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, you mean a tie-in to a past series?
Yes, I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong. And some people were,
it's a bit too early for me to come up with a Watcher.
I don't really have a theory behind that yet because
I've got nothing.
That's fair.
Picard's weird, and it's just like I don't know what's going on, but I'll watch the next episode and find out.
Fair enough. Right. All right. So at this point, Picard says that they need to travel back in time to figure this out, and Picard knows that Annika goes that this Confederation did not seem to possess any time travel technology, whereas we know that Starfleet has several of them. There are crude methods like the slingshot effect, which is something James C. Kirk had done. And Gerardi points out they would need an intelligence capable of isolating a lot of math and microshifting for chronoton radiation decay. Kirk had Spock. We don't have anyone. I would wager that Seven could have done it if she still had her implants. But she doesn't.
Yes, probably. Yeah,
But
I love
as a
the
result-
reference to Kirk had Spock.
Oh yeah, Spock was a once in a generation genius, so it makes
Yes.
sense that you can rely on him. But they don't have one of those right on hand, so they have to use the Borg Queen. So awkward to have to use like
Be like,
the Borg
hey, you mind
Queen.
helping? Mind helping us out real quick?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
we need to
it's
travel
real
back in
weird.
time.
Yeah,
Can you
we'll
give us
trust,
some help?
we'll trust the Borg Queen. We'll do that. We'll trust the last of her kind not to fuck us over.
So
also try and
here's
trust
something I
the
wanted to bring up. Previous Borg Queens have always come off definitely intentionally as being like sultry or sexy or kind of like manipulative in their like by using their bodies, right? This queen is manipulative, absolutely, but in a different way. This one seems much more calculating while insane. It's both very rational and very thinking about its actions, but it's also definitely fucking lost its mind, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's a balance there that this actress is doing an amazing job of portraying without relying on the old tropes of like, oh, let me stroke your hair that I just implanted on you or anything sexy and sultry like that. Like this is not the slinky catsuit Borg Queen. This is much creepier and much smarter.
I don't find the Borg Queen sultry or attractive or anything. I mean, I don't know how it works, but no, she's not my type.
Listen, give
Data
Alice
certainly
Krige
did.
some credit. Give Alice Krige some credit where credit is due.
Well, you said Data did? Yeah, this is because last time he got laid was like 8 or so years ago with Tasha Yar. So he might have been hard up. We don't know.
All right, so this is where they start talking about how like Borg Queen, what did it feel like for all your people to be eradicated? What was it like to witness the end of the great Borg Empire? And so they're trying to like badger her, and then they point up, ask her like, will you help us? And the Borg Queen agrees. And then they're all like, okay, now what? 7 contacts Rios, asking for 5 of them to beam up, plus the Borg Queen. Rios is momentarily like, I'm sorry, what now? I'm sorry. English is my second language. Can you say that again, please? Kind of moment.
The what queen?
Queen? Like
The Borg what?
the who? Yeah, I don't blame him. He's also very protective of his ship, so he's probably like, no.
Yeah, but
Funny for that one, bro.
Gerardi does the whole reassurance of like stasis tube, so it's fine. And he starts to do the transporters, but doesn't work. The planet has like planet-wide transporter security because of the momentous day of eradication.
Because of course it does. It's the competitor. I mean, come on.
It would have been
Right.
too easy if not.
Yeah.
Right.
too
Because
easy.
why not?
But yeah, and then Rios tells him to try finding a blind spot, but communications get cut off too. Another security method. And then the Borg Queen gets like re-shielded and sucked back up because she's going to go to her Eradication Day ceremony like location.
Nice.
It was a really tight scene. I liked it. I liked the way that they like had all the beats in a row. It went very well.
I also like the image that I have in my head of like of like the Borg Queen going up in like a bank tube. You know what I mean? Just going shunk, like all the way through this like tube system. Kind of like we see the turbo lifts in
Yeah.
Discovery. I can't remember where it's like just all sideways. Just imagining like the Borg Queen silent going shunk.
I want to know what else is in that prison though, right? Like in this Gerardi
boy.
managed prison, they've got tons of cells. M510 implies that there's probably an M410, right? Or an M59, right? So
Yeah.
what else is in there? Who
I
else have
imagine
they
it
got
like
in there?
the wall of evil computers in lower decks. That's how
That's what I was
imagine
thinking.
it.
That's what I was thinking.
It looks like and she just every couple hours or so, like a mail tube or bank tube just comes out like shunk. I was just thinking it's funny. That's the first thing I thought about when I was watching it. Oh Lord. Anyway,
So cut to our next scene, and Picard, this is like after the commercial break, but there's no commercials usually. So Picard asks where they're taking the Queen, and Seven tells him the Eradication Day protocol means that she's being placed in a queue for public execution, which Picard calls barbaric. Duh. Not helped by the fact that the Queen is to be killed by Picard himself. And Picard then gets a plan. He gets an idea. He starts telling people, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Make it happen, right? So Gerardi's supposed to find a way to get communications back up. Raffi and Elnor are supposed to find a way to get the shields down so that they can beam up. And then Seven and Picard have to like buy enough time to actually
succeed with the other plans, right? It's a teamwork thing. I love it. Oh, and real quick, I remember earlier I was talking about the thing with Sarek being executed, Vulcan Science Academy. That sounded very familiar. It was in one of the Coda books. It was in one of the parts where they're in the mirror universe, and it was Spock. It was Emperor Spock in the mirror universe.
Yeah, he was killed inside of the chambers of like government there, like brutally murdered or something. Yeah.
That was where I was thinking I heard that before. Okay. Sorry. Just want to say it because I just remembered it.
No worries. All right. So the magistrate then appears. The magistrate then shows up and is like, time to get a move on. And he stops to be like, why do you know my wife? Right, to Gerardi, right? Like, what is going on here? Something weird is going on here. And then Gerardi offers like this rambling, fantastic, wild ass explanation that was fantastic. I thought that it was really good acting from Alison Pill. I really liked the delivery on it, and it was pretty plausible. It's a little weird, but it's plausible information what she's saying.
Oh yeah, 100%. Also, Annika 7 shots Hansen. Queen.
7 shots Hansen. Yeah.
7 shots. It's so good. It's so good. I loved that scene specifically. I feel like because, everybody else has their own sort of calculating way of lying and figuring out how to do it. And it's like, shit, I got to say something quick, and does. And it works because that's who Gerardi is. Gerardi is a quick thinker, even though it comes out as just rambling. But it sort of kind of buys him some time. So, either way, it works out pretty well. And also Alison Pill is great.
She's good at distraction by confusion.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, everybody's just like, okay, you're nuts. I'm going to go over there now. Like, I think it's great.
I mean, if she can't blind them with her brilliance, she can baffle them with her bullshit, right? So it worked out just fine in that case.
That's perfect. That's exactly true. Yeah.
So, and it worked out fine because the magistrate kind of like takes
He's
it.
Like,
and,
okay, well, fine, whatever. I don't have time for this shit right now.
Okay, so then they go back into character, and Picard tells Musiker to find out, or Raffi to find out what Elnor knows, and they all kind of start to break. Like, everybody goes on their party duty, and off they go. Anyways, so then we get this interesting projection just outside of the building that's going on, where Adam Sung is declaring that a safe galaxy is a human galaxy, which was the same line that Picard used in his recruitment video that was filmed and that we saw earlier in the episode. Uh-huh. So Adam Sung is an interesting reference to our good old Sung family and their many androids. So,
we're definitely talking about spoilers anyway, but Brent Spiner is playing Adam Sung.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the Sung dynasty's genetics are real strong. They all seem to look alike.
It's so awesome. That's the one thing about I think that I really love about it is just like, yeah, they're all the same. That's fine. We're sticking with it. We're sticking to our guns on that one. Yeah, just go with it. It's fine.
Every single male in the Sung family all looks alike. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, strong genes, baby.
Oh, strong.
It'd be like that. They're just like, well, he wants to do it, so fire away. Let's go. I like that about it. I love that.
So Seven starts giving her speech. My fellow Confederates, blah blah blah. Eradication Day is a symbol of humanity's merciful power. It feels very much a reference to the speeches that we see in, from historical, like, Nazi Germany references, right? Like, the setup for it is very much like that. It also reminds me a lot of V for Vendetta, right? With the way that the government there does their presentations and speeches. In fact, the symbol on the Starfleet Delta that they're all wear, or the Delta that they're all wearing, even looks a lot like the symbol that the fascist order uses in V for Vendetta. They use like a cross, except it's upside down, so it looks like a sword. Same thing that we're seeing with these badges. It looks like it has a sword pointing down. So, and that might be an intentional reference, which is cool because it fits. And I know that, it's a popular bit of media. So anyway, so she gives her speech, and while she's doing it, she goes like, who better to demonstrate our merciful power than Picard? And then Picard comes out And then the queen is brought out into the stage and her shield is dropped so that, she can be shot. And Picard starts to cheer out the audience, getting them to cheer some more, like, give me some actual sound here, right? Before he does anything. We cut to Gerardi, who's trying to get through to comms, to Rios. She finally succeeds. Their signals are very weak. There's a transport inhibitor. So Gerardi's now got to figure out how to boost their transporter signal before they can even bring the shield down. There's some fun banter back and forth, clearly showing signs that they were in a relationship, about how like him being so goddamn impatient. And then we're doing this now, seriously. And if it wasn't a life or death situation, I'd hang up on you, kind of thing. So delightful there.
Yeah. And I also wanted to mention that I think earlier in the episode, Raffi, when she finds out that Seven has a husband, is like, oh, got over your commitment issue. And it's like, it's just those little, this little stuff that we find with them. And I also still don't think that because I think that when Picard speaks to Raffi in the previous episode about Seven, he knows that Raffi still loves Seven and mentions like, you want something more there. And I think that Seven they're probably not like broken up. She probably just sort of got overwhelmed and said, bye, I'm going to go do my own thing. But yeah.
A distinction without a difference, really. A distinction without a difference.
But yeah. I'm hopeful.
I hope that they end up back together. I think that that's kind of part of the buddy comedy or the buddy routine act that we're going to see when they go time traveling.
Yeah. I'm excited for you can drive a starship. You can't even drive a car. I'm excited for that. I'm excited.
But yeah, I like that a lot. So then we see Raffi and Elnor showing up at the security command center, where she gives this yarn about how Elnor uploaded a virus into the palace computers and she has to remove it. And then she gives Elnor to the two or three security guards like a gift, rough him up some, have fun with him while she clears it out. And that scene goes delightfully. He takes a beating, he gets punched, he's on the ground, he takes some kicks. And then Raffi's like, okay, you can finish it up now. And then he efficiently murders 3 security guards without like a moment of delay.
The combat weapon?
Oh, yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love him. I love it. And I think it was mentioned actually, once again, in that little fun production video that Star Trek posted, that it was mentioned that they actually made that a weapon on purpose. Like they made the comm badge like a knife, and it's real cool to see it up close. Yeah, I thought it was a really, really cool detail to make everything just sort of slightly more menacing and in different ways. And Elnor getting a comm badge and going, oh, look, ninja star.
Right.
Awesome. It was so cool.
Yep. So cut to the back to the crowd cheering at Picard to like kill the Borg Queen. He's taking his time. They start to get a little uncomfortable. They start chanting like kill. And like, there's clearly some discomfort in the audience there, whatever, but it's what you expect from like a mass of people wanting to see blood, monstrous blood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It starts to backfire, like I said, though. Then we've got Gerardi and Rios still talking some more and like more bickering, delightful bickering about like his man on the move mentality and so forth. And then Raffi brings down the shield. Raffi tells Agnes like, you good? We've got a minute before this thing reboots. And she's like hammering away, trying to boost the signal. At the last second, she manages to break through the inhibitor field, boost all their signals, and they all get beamed up.
Just in the nick of time.
Yeah, because the audience is looking horrified. Yeah, the magistrate actually starts to like approach Picard and Seven, and Picard just shoots the 2 guards, and Seven gets beamed up. So does Picard. They're all gone.
Well,
cool
shooting them was
cool
a good idea because now it's just falling apart.
Well, so the interesting thing for me is that Picard did all the shooting, right? So Seven didn't. Mm-hmm. So from the magistrate's perspective, Seven is being kidnapped here, right? She's not a part of this plot. She's just kind of like a bystander seeing it happen. She didn't know what to do when Picard didn't shoot the Borg. She just stood there, right? But I think that's going to be relevant later on.
Yep, I agree.
So they get to their stations on the La Sirena. Rios orders that Raffi raise shields to maximum. Seven takes the helm, and then Gerardi starts moving the Borg Queen in her stasis tube over to the warp core. Rios protests and is like, "You're not hooking that thing up to my ship." Picard is very clear about how they needed to time travel, and Rios has the most honest response here possible. Time travel doesn't make me feel better about any of this. Amen. Amen, dude.
Yeah, very true. I love that Rios is just like, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, okay. And like, it's very much like, this is my ship and we're going to do that. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's logical. That'll be fine. You know,
he doesn't want to.
He doesn't want, yeah, I mean, what choice does he have at this point? So he's just like, okay, I hate that, but cool. Fine. Well, let's go, Admiral. Fine. You know, I love that about him.
Yep. Agnes wheels over the Borg Queen and starts plugging her in. She starts looking real confident, all of a sudden, which I don't like at all. Then Raffi responds that there's a presidential override of their shields and that the fleet is already on top of them. Then immediately the magistrate beams aboard and he personally shoots Eleanor in the chest. And then a couple more guards appear and they're all held under pistol fire at this point. Eleanor's on the deck, bleeding. Raffi looks real concerned, like ready to jump to save him if she can. And then the magistrate turns to Picard and goes, like, what a trophy of his head will look like. How about Jean-Luc, traitor, killed while rescuing a Borg? And episode ends.
Yeah, I'm worried about Eleanor. I'm real worried about Eleanor because I know for a fact that there's a scene in one of the trailers where we see Raffi kind of over him.
Don't say it.
It's in the trailer.
Don't take away my space Legolas, please.
I love him. I don't want him to die. But, you know, it would make sense if like something were to happen to him, if like that would bring Seven and Raffi closer because like would have lost a son both. But I hate it. I hate it.
I did see the trailer for, well, just the season because I know about the whole you can't drive a car thing and you work on your communication so I whatever that was, like I saw that. But wait, have they been showing trailers after the episodes? Because I know Discovery hasn't been for some reason. All right. So, right. Like I looked at the season long preview, but not each episode.
Yeah, I think it's in both, but I could be wrong. Sorry.
Gotcha. What I did notice in the season long preview for the season of Picard was that I did not see Eleanor in any of it.
I know.
So that's why I'm nervous. I'm worried.
I'm going to be really, really upset.
No, I take that back. The only part in the season preview that I remember seeing him in was in the Okinawa scene when he's running and jumps over but I don't know.
Also,
get a little
where
nervous.
Is Soji? Can we talk about where the fuck is Soji?
She may not be relevant to this plot yet. She may not show up
yet. But I have a feeling she's got. I mean, but she's got to show up. I mean, she also wasn't in the event horizon for that, I guess. And so, like, maybe wouldn't have been part of the.
I don't think she's in the season.
I don't think the event horizon mattered at all, though. I think that it's just a matter of Q deciding who's going to be in this timeline, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I mean, I hope we get more of her. I don't know. I feel like it would be lame if we didn't. But
I just, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time coming up with how she would be relevant.
Yeah. And also,
all right. Time for my theory.
Okay, let's hear it.
So this is totally put on your tinfoil hat kind of moment, but here's what I think is going on across this whole season, right?
Okay.
I don't think that the Borg Queen that we saw on the Stargazer was actually evil. I think that she legitimately was trying to get help. She legitimately was leading this group of Borg to get access to the Federation, right? When she asked for power, she's literally just asking for like electricity from the ships so that she can seal the rift behind her or to get her ship all the way through. So it's just a problem of communications there, right? Picard and these Starfleet officers don't trust her. They don't give her a chance and they suicide and self-destruct. This is the mistake. This is a betrayal of Federation values of like somebody asked you for help, somebody asked you for assistance, you should give it to them. And Q is now making Picard pay penance for this, right? He's going to go through this lesson where he has to realize that if you don't trust people whom you shouldn't trust, like if you don't give them a chance, you don't give them a second chance or whatever, things get worse. That's going to be the change that's in history here that makes the Confederacy of Earth so dystopian versus the Federation of Planets, right? Yeah. It's going to be that. I think it's going to be some sort of realization there. And when he realizes it, I think the season's going to essentially go with Q snaps his fingers, and they all go back to that moment on the Stargazer before the everybody starts shooting, right? And the first person to shoot is Annika Hansen, or 7 of 9, and this time she's not going to shoot. The rest of the Borg crew aren't going to start shooting, and they're just going to sit and wait and see what the Borg Queen does, and it's going to seal the rift behind them, and it's like a legitimate attempt to join the Federation or work with the Federation, probably, right? I think that's where this whole season's going to go.
Yeah, and if it were future, I mean, if they want help as well, I feel like it could be tied into Discovery. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Shot, but like, who knows?
So I'm with you on the fact that Borg Queen is something special, right? She's not a normal Borg Queen, right? Ooh. I don't know if it is Agnes. I think that that's a very real possibility, because I think that Agnes is going to get fucked up by the Borg Queen at some point. But I'm not sure that the look up thing was actually from the mom. Or from like the mom perspective, like if that was a real thing. But if it is, then I'm totally down with this being a time traveling Borg Queen from the future, right? Like she's more advanced. They know things. She's coming here because she needs to set up the plot line for season 3 of Picard, which is this Borg group and Starfleet have to work together to prevent something that destroys them both in the future, or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. Yeah, honestly.
But I am totally down with this prospect of like, this is not an evil Borg situation with the Stargazer Borg Queen, but the Borg Queen from the Confederation timeline, definitely evil. She's evil.
Yeah, for sure.
You still got to use her. You got to work with her, but she's going to betray you. And then you're going to have to take a moment and immediately afterwards trust the Borg Queen on the Stargazer.
Yeah, and
That's
think that
very Q-like to me.
It's very cool, and I really like it. I also, just random, but I also really want some cosplay reference shots of that futuristic Borg Queen, because I want to do that. I can't but I want to do that. But like, no, I mean, I think it's really a really interesting thing that we kind of don't know what the hell's going on. And it just builds on it very slowly. And it's, again, that's one thing I love about the new Treks, is that there's just little stuff. I mean, it's not episodic. There's little stuff that we find out every episode that leads us eventually to the end, but we really don't know where the hell it's going. None of us do. So I think it's really cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah. The fact that this future Borg Queen was stunning people is a big tell as to her motivations, right?
Yes.
And the fact that she didn't attack the fleet, she didn't try destroying them. And again, everybody keeps saying that what was used against the Stargazer was a cutting beam, but I don't buy it, right? Because they didn't say it in the dialogue. It's people are just assuming because it's a green shiny beam, it's a cutting beam. Right. No, I think that was literally just the power of their transporter blowing through their shields, right? So I don't think that this Borg scene that we saw in the Stargazer episode is anything malicious. It's just misunderstood, and that's the penance that we have to pay for. We didn't give them a chance, so now Q wants us to give us a chance. Now, the reason I think Q is involved in this is going back to Q Junior, right? Remember his line about we don't antagonize the Borg. The Borg has some kind of purpose.
Right.
The Q have definitely understood the Borg serve some bigger, higher purpose, and this might
don't provoke the Borg.
Don't provoke the Borg, yeah.
Right. So I think that this might be part of it. I think that this is all part of like Q making sure that the Borg serve their purpose, and this is part of it.
I also don't think we're done with Guinan. I don't think we're done with Guinan. I think we're going to see Guinan a lot more in.
Maybe that's why the Queen is aware of temporal realities, right? The same way Guinan is. Maybe that Queen is an assimilated Elorian.
Okay.
Wouldn't. Well, I mean, it would also make sense just in the fact that she's a queen because of what Seven mentioned, where they have temporal awareness. Even if they are cut off from the collective, they have that sort of temporal awareness, and they're able to tell when something's off.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
So we're taking that line from Voyager where Q told his son, "Don't provoke the Borg." Now, naturally, a lot of stuff like that could be throwaway lines, like the throwaway line of Worf saying to the group on during the DS9 episode about the other Klingons. It's something that we don't talk about. Threw everyone into a fury for years. All the Trek beards were angry about that. So this line about "don't provoke the Borg" could have been just one of those cool, it's going to be a mysterious line. Like, why would the Q be worried about the Borg? So maybe they're taking that now, saying, okay, well, let's actually take this throwaway one-liner and turn it into something that concerns the Q and the Borg for some reason. that we don't know about. And I wonder, what is it about the Borg that the Q don't want them provoked? Like, don't fuck with them. It's
the same way that Guinan scared the piss out of Q the first time that they met too. That whole scene,
which we never saw again. But right, yeah, I get it. But what's the significant part about 2024? Like, what the hell is it that happens?
The Bell riots are the only thing that I know of, right? It's probably not that. It's probably something new, but that's the only thing I can hypothesize about.
No, I know what it's 2024. I know what it's going to be that sets all of this off in motion. Trump gets reelected.
No,
that's 2024.
That's the darkest timeline.
Yeah, that's the darkest timeline. It is.
No.
And the reason it's California, because they have the most electoral votes in the country, 55.
Oh my God. No.
So something in LA, he gets, that's the dark timeline, but I'm just saying.
No,
I'm out.
Yeah. And that's Beyond Track for the and that's the podcast.
I do want to wrap up by saying that I thought this episode was really, really good. It kept the energy as high as the first episode, which I also really liked. And I am continuing to just be like, I just need more. Like, can you give it to my vein? I need an intravenous Picard at this point, right? Just give it to me. I don't want to wait week to week.
Tubules, please. right here. Just put
going week to week for this show is torture. Legitimate agony.
It's absolute torture. No, for me, it was almost. I mean, I loved being at the premiere. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to be like uninvited but like the worst part about it was that like I knew what happened in the first 2 episodes, and I couldn't say shit for a week.
Yep.
And it was a lot.
That happened with me on this season of Discovery. I was in one of those things where you got to the first 2 episodes, and the kind of theories and everything that Dag and Renzo were talking about after that first episode, like it was killing me.
Yeah, that's one reason I'm kind of glad I didn't do the episode 1 review with y'all, because I was like, I'm gonna say something.
Hey, don't break your NDAs. Don't break your NDAs.
You remember that, Renzo? You and Dag had 2 theories about one thing, and I was just like, okay, one of you is right, one of you is wrong.
Yeah, it's just like you can't say shit. And
I know.
It's annoying because especially with that like dream story that I had about like the cognitive, like I wanted to post that on Twitter immediately, but I only told Heather. Like I DM'd Heather, and I was like, you have to know about this because you're the only other person I know who's been to the premiere who would listen to me.
Right. Yeah, don't. I know it's painful. I know how you feel.
It was wonderful. Don't do it. So cool. And the thing is that I logged out of it at one point, and somebody was like, You need to get back in that. You need to go back to the premiere.
Fun fact for you. I just found this too. So in the reports that Seven was reading when she was at her desk, right? If you read through the text, there's mentions of a General Miles O'Brien, a Lieutenant General, a Lieutenant General Natasha Yar. Oh. And in the same reports, Tuvok was mentioned as the commander of Vulcan forces resisting occupation.
Ooh.
Oh, love that.
I love it.
Attaboy, Tuvok, king.
All right, y'all.
All right. Well, so this season is already turning out to, I love the mystery behind it. I want to know, why is it 2024? Why is it LA? Who is the watcher? All of these things. And Renzo, you're right. The week to week is torture because it's going to be the whole season of all these. It's like Discovery. There are these theories and thoughts that the crew has that turned out to not be right. There's this other discovery, these other mysteries, and it's going to be a hell of a season. So anyway, for our listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us on this episode review. And as always, live long and prosper.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters. Big thanks to Stephanie Baker, S. Tam, Anne Marie, Jim Cook, and Nora Hickson. We really appreciate your support. Thanks for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.